What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you guys. And I wanted to answer one question that I think is interesting because we haven't broken down this topic, I think, in great detail, but it is a fun one. And the question comes from Rose Gold Steelers, DM'd me on Twitter. So, how good do we expect Kaleb Johnson to be this year? And how much can he eat into Jaylen Warren's role by the end of the year? And so this is an interesting question because the backfield for Pittsburgh this year, it's going to be different without Najee Harris. There's no question about it. Najee Harris not being there for the Steelers is a significant change. And now I think it's probably going to end up being a good change for them. I don't think he was a scheme fit for them. They are a team that's going to run a lot of wide zone. They're not a team that runs a ton of gap stuff. Should they be running more gap stuff? Yes, I think they should. But they are a wide zone heavy run scheme. And I just don't think that's Najee's style. I think Najee's more of a guy that gets downhill. I think he's a great scheme fit with Los Angeles. But I don't think with Pittsburgh it was going to be maximized. I like Jaylen Warren's fit, and I love Kaleb Johnson's fit. Kenneth Gainwell as well. Really good scheme fit. And so the Steelers have good scheme fits now in their backfield. Jaylen Warren is, I think, right now maybe the most underrated player on the offense. I just see too much deterrence towards people embracing Jaylen Warren getting a bigger role. I'll tell you what, I watched Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris in practice for the past 3 seasons. I thought Jaylen Warren was the better running back. Now we'll see. Is he going to be able to shoulder a load that Najee could get? I think that's a question. We haven't seen it though. People say, well, he can't, but we don't actually know. And I don't think we're necessarily going to find out a ton this year if he is either, because I think Kenneth Gainwell and Kaleb Johnson are going to play a significant amount from the outset, even if I think Jaylen Warren is probably going to be the week one starter. By the end of the year, it definitely could be Kaleb Johnson that has the macro of that. But I think Jaylen Warren's a good player. In fact, I said last week I would extend him. I really like him. I love his skill set. You don't find good pass protecting backs very often, and I think people don't understand how valuable his skill is. The fact that he can catch the ball in the backfield, that he's so dynamic in open space, and that he is a elite pass protector. He's not just a good pass protector. This guy is an elite pass protecting back. Means a lot, and that's just a rare skill that a lot of teams don't have in their backfield. And I do know the injuries. He had the knee last year. He was a little banged up last year, but he was not really. He's not really been that injured in his career. He hasn't missed much games. He had a hamstring injury his rookie year. I think he missed like one game. This is not a guy that has typically been injured very often. Even though, I think that gets like peddled a lot. I mean, the durability part of his game has not really popped up. He hasn't had a significant injury. You look back at his college days, he did have an injury at Utah State, but like that has not been a significant issue for him. Now, maybe it's because he hasn't had the shoulder to load. Sure, you can argue that. But I look at Jaylen Warren's game, elite pass protector, good receiver, good pure runner. In terms of tackle breaking, I mean, we're talking about one of the best tackle breakers in football. That's not a crazy thing to say. In terms of the per touch stats, the per carry stats, I mean, he is top five in tackle breaking efficiency since he came to the NFL. This guy breaks tackles at an absurd rate. He creates things when there is nothing. Jaylen Warren's a good player, and so he's going to play. I think probably by the end of the year could this tip towards Kaleb Johnson, 50-40, something like that, with Kenneth Gainwell still getting his 10. Sure, but I really do think when we look at Jaylen Warren, he's going to have a good year, and I think he's a good player. And so I want to say that I like this backfield, but let's talk about Kaleb Johnson. What does it take for a rookie running back to overtake the other one? We saw this happen a little bit last year in Tampa Bay, where Rashad White got overtaken by Bucky Irving. And they're different players. Kaleb Johnson and Bucky Irving, very different players. But Bucky Irving was the more dynamic runner. And even though Rashad White is a good receiver and a really good pass protector, Bucky Irving still took most of the snaps. But it was like a 50-40 split. It wasn't like he took everything. And I don't think it's going to change a ton when you look at the context of the Steelers. Because Kaleb Johnson right now, in terms of pass pro, It's rough. He's got a willingness to do it. He certainly has the frame to do it. He's a guy that's big and could be that. But just because you're big and have the frame to do it doesn't mean you're good at it. And so all of that very important to know. And so I believe the Steelers, when they look at Kaleb Johnson, it's going to be how well does he get along there? He actually has the hard part of pass pro down, which is the willingness and the IDing. IDing the most dangerous rusher in pass pro for a running back can be so hard because you have to understand fronts, you have to understand blitzes, you have to understand all the looks they're going to throw at you. I talked with Eddie Faulkner about that, and he's Caleb's great at that. Caleb knows where the most dangerous guys. It's about the techniques, about snapping his hips through. It's about having his pad level there. It's about having his hands get through. It's all about that. And a lot of the times when you look at his Iowa tape, he would go to the ground and kind of try and chop block guys or try and take out their legs rather than stay up on his feet. In the NFL, you got to stay up on your feet because you got to give that quarterback as much time as possible. Jaylen Warren does a great job of that. He's got an explosive lower half and he pops through. And that's when you can see him kind of jolt bigger guys. And Kaleb Johnson has the ability to do that. It's just going to be how quickly can he get on there. He's got a great work ethic. He's got the detail oriented nature. He's obviously got a great mentor, Jaylen Warren, to kind of learn from. It's just going to be how quickly does he pick up on that because otherwise he's not going to play a ton of three down ball. He wasn't a big receiver at Iowa. I think he's actually got better hands. I saw him at minicamp kind of catching it away from his frame. He's not a body catcher. He's kind of got soft hands. So I think that's a good part. But in terms of like pure rusher, this is the best pure rusher on the team in terms of the wide zone stuff they do, the mid zone the Steelers run, because the Steelers run a ton of wide zone, mid zone, inside zone, things like that. And he is so good at that. His angle bursting, he's got the ability to do that. He's got rare acceleration for his size. And I think that's something that you look at his 40 time and you say, oh, um, there really is like not great immediate explosiveness, but the acceleration he has is really impressive. When he gets in the open field and he gets going, he is gone. And that's why he's able to have that long speed because he's a guy that can actually kind of fly when you look at him. He's a fascinating player in that regard. And so the 10-yard split, for example, is a 1.62. But at his back half of the 20, he's very explosive. And so it's a little bit of a different type of running back than anyone the Steelers have had in recent memory because he's a build-up speed guy. But he's got these understandings of how to press the line and how to get very specific angles and break them at the line of scrimmage to maximize what he gets. He's a super patient runner. And so all of this comes together to create a great wide zone back that has good vision and is able to make big plays out of that, even despite not having elite instant explosiveness. And the long speed's really good because when he gets going, I mean, the GPS top speed, he's hit like 22 miles per hour. For reference, that is the same top speed as DK Metcalf. Like he can fly when he gets in the open field. It's just when he gets going. And so the Steelers, when you look at their interior, I mean, they're going to have the ability to probably create those lanes for him. And he's patient enough to create those, bait those linebackers into the hole, allow the interior lineman to kind of go reach them and then pop right out the side and get big chunk gains. And that's going to be big for the Steelers. They need to be explosive on the ground. And he's a guy that can be explosive on the ground. Not that Jaylen Warren can't. I just don't think it's necessarily Jaylen's game to be an explosive wide zone back. I actually think Jaylen's a better gap runner. I think he can be a good zone runner, but I actually think he's a better gap runner. And Kaleb Johnson's just a glove-like fit. And so when you ask me how much is Kaleb Johnson going to take away from Jaylen Warren by the end of the year, I fully expect Kaleb Johnson by week 18 to be the starting running back. But is he going to be, playing all three downs? I kind of doubt that year one. I think year two is somewhere where we can see the leap kind of take. He's still really young. To pass pro, especially with technique things, that's a rep based thing. It takes a while to get it down. And so while I don't think he's going to be a complete disaster in that area, I do think it'll take some time for everything to kind of coalesce for him. And so when you ask me kind of how much do I think Jaylen Warren's going to play, it's a lot, and I think he deserves it. And I think he's a pretty underrated player, to be quite honest with you. And I do like Kaleb Johnson. I think Kaleb Johnson's going to be a really explosive offensive weapon for the Steelers this year, and someone that they can really count on in the future. So we'll see how that kind of works out. But I'm a fan of both these guys. I do expect Jaylen Warren to start the year as a starter, but I think as the year goes on, we'll probably see it more and more towards Kaleb Johnson, I think that's probably the right move. But I don't expect Jaylen Warren to get phased out of this running game at all because I like Jaylen Warren. I think he's a really good player. All right, folks, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell for more. If you want to read the Steelers stuff over at penlive.com/Steelers, you could follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB. Thanks for watching, everybody.